WORLDMIKEL had a conversation with Sarab Singh Neelam about the film Ocean of Pearls.
I've got on the line with me right now Dr. Sarab Singh Neelam, who has just put together, and probably not just, but a couple of years ago, and now it's released to the public here, a movie called Ocean of Pearls. Welcome, Dr. Neelam.
Thank you very much.
And I'm reading a lot of the things that are on the internet about this, and I've seen some of the promotion. Tell me, first of all, where are you from?
Well, I'm from, Mike, I was born in India, and I fell in love with cinema at that time when I was just a young child, like about 7 years old. Mm-hmm. And then our family immigrated to Canada, in Toronto. And then I started, studying out there and felt somewhat different. I had long hair, so my hairs are knotted on top, and people used to come in and take pictures with me saying, "Oh, are you a boy or are you a girl?" And then so I felt like kind of, there was you had a lot of opportunities and freedoms and stuff like that. But then there was also this other things about being different,
But this is not popular with all Indians. You are the Sikh religion?
Yes, the Sikh way of life, or Sikh religion, is the fifth largest religion in the world. We have about 25 million people in the world, and most of them live in India, and majority in Punjab, in northern part of India. But then now you have actually a good population all over the world right now. You'll find Sikhs in every major country in the world right now, especially in Canada and America. There's quite a bit of population there too.
Right. Now in Canada, and I would, I'm just guessing, just from my experience with Canada, it's not all that different. Everybody kind of melds together there, and also expects that it's kind of like a United Nations there. Not so much in the U.S., I sense. What do you think? Is it different here?
Well, definitely Toronto, I would say, is probably the most cosmopolitan city in the world. I mean, you can walk anywhere and see people from all nations there, okay? Mm-hmm. And they have little neighborhoods in Toronto which are from all different walks, different parts of the world: Italian, Portuguese, Indian, Chinese, etc. But one thing you have to understand about Sikh way of life is that we are very visible, extremely visible, because we have the turban on our head.
Yes.
And it's what we call it, crown of our spirituality. So it's an article of faith, is part of us, is part of our life. So when you say the melting pot, yes, we are a melting pot in the sense that we do everything that anybody else would do. We go play sports, we go to music and theater, and and all sorts of things like dating. But we still look a little bit more visible than the others. Okay. So that's where the melting pot is there, but it's certainly, we're still very easily identifiable.
Now, so along the way, you had this interest in film, but you went on to become a doctor. Tell me where these two things kind of separated.
Well, there's actually quite a bit of similarities and separation between the two as well. But the reasons I guess I became a doctor was because my parents really wanted us to study a medical field, and there's no Sikh directors or filmmakers out there, or very rare. So it was not something that my family would encourage me to do, and so I decided to go into medical field. And I love it too, by the way. I'm in the hospital right now as we're talking. Right. But something inside of me kept telling me, though, that hey, your life is not complete unless you actually do the filmmaking as part of what you always wanted to do. So I started taking a lot of classes for the last decade in Hollywood and Toronto and Maine, and just studied with a lot of people who were very, very passionate about their work. And finally, I got a chance to do this project, which was I'm very grateful for.
That's very good, and it sounds very good too. Some of the people that you met along the way, a couple of names that I read. Can you tell me?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the first person that introduced me to Jim Bernstein was Kurt Ledke, who was nominated and won the writing for Out of Africa. He's from Michigan too. Mm-hmm. So he introduced me to Jim Bernstein, who was a budding screenwriter at the time, and then he went on to become a professor of and department head of screenwriting at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and he's gotten several of his screenplays turned into studio pictures like Renaissance Man and the Ducks, etc. So he's been very, very kind and helpful in my dreams as well. And then obviously, and the other thing is then I met a bunch of other people like Jeff Dowd, who's the dude in the real life, and he helped also shape the writing along with Prasad, who is the screenwriter in Los Angeles, very talented man. And then there was Emily Schweber, who helped cast movies like Titanic and Matrix, and she was involved in our production. And Jason Stewart is our editor, and then Lon Stratton, the cinematographer, and our actors, who were really top notch. I mean, Omid Abtahi, who is brilliant in our film. So I've had a chance to work with really good people, and Judith Weston, who was my teacher in acting and directing, and but I can sort of keep going on.
Right.
I'm sure I'm forgetting, and I'm going to apologize to anybody who I missed out. I'm sure that I missed out a bunch of people there.
But that's very good. Now this, though I'm darting all over the place, we've talked about people that are here in Michigan. The one thing that is kind of a mystery to me, with so many people that are foreigners here, how in the heck did you ever end up coming to Detroit?
Well, we have, you see, there's definitely more opportunity for practice. That's one of the differences between the American way of health system and Canadian system, is that in the Canadian system, if you have a hospital, like a suburban hospital, it'll take one or 2 or 3 different specialists of one field, and that's it. And so if you weren't born into a family that was in the hospital, or it didn't fit into the right kind of look for the hospital, you didn't get in. And whereas in America, if you're good, you'll do well. And it was competition, and so the same hospital in Detroit would have like 20 or 30 different specialists like we have in each hospital that I go to. And so there was really a huge opportunities for advancement for me in America.
Okay.
And I stayed and I came to Detroit because it was close to Toronto, where my family lives. So it was kind of natural there.
Very good. Now, talking about that, although this isn't the point that I wanted to talk about, but since we're on the subject, is the Canadian health care system good or bad? These days, you made this movie in advance of all the popularity of this the health issue here, and all of a sudden you've kind of fallen right in the middle of this, and especially a lot of the contrast between the U.S. health system as it stands and the Canadian health system, as we probably really don't know about it. All we know about it is anecdotally. Tell me, what is it like there in Canada?
Well, I practiced. I trained there. I practiced there for about a month or two. And it is certainly different. Okay, there is there's good and bad. There's certainly it's not all good. It's not all bad. If you ask general people, are they happy with the Canadian system? And they are. And the reason they're happy there is because no one gets bankrupt because they get an illness. Whereas in our movie here, we show a woman that has insurance and that she still has to become bankrupt. A well-to-do, middle-class female.
In the trailer,
it is a fear that we have in this country, where if you got an illness of no fault of your own, anyone in this country practically, unless you're a billionaire or multi-gazillionaire, you can become bankrupt. Okay, and that is not something that I agree with. And the other thing that I don't agree with here is that that sometimes the treatment of a patient is based on their insurance, and that's not the right thing to do as well.